Buy Metroid Dread. I know there's been a lot of articles floating around from certain websites saying that the emulated version is glorious and it's amazing, which I'm sure it is, but for the love of God, we need more Metroid, so please go support this series and buy it on Nintendo Switch. Then if you want to emulate it, that's perfectly cool. Let's just support this franchise, guys. Please consider that this is the first 2D sequel in almost 20 years in a franchise that statistically doesn't sell very well. So let's not condone piracy like a certain website out there, and actually support the creators who make amazing games, and Metroid Dread is exactly that. And today, I brought on Ben from the Nintendo Enthusiast website to talk all about it with me. He's a Metroid super fan. He has written dozens of articles about this franchise, and I'm excited to talk with him and pick his brain and tell him everything I love about this game. So without further ado, let's jump on into our review discussion. Ben!
Hey, how's it going?
Metroid Dread, what do you think?
It is the game that I have been waiting for since I was 11 years old and playing Metroid Fusion in Walmart on the little demo station while my mom shopped for groceries. That is the game Metroid Dread
Oh my god. Dude, this game really surprised me. I gotta say, I was a bit worried because I had started Samus Returns for 3DS, and it's by the same studio, and I just wasn't feeling it. I just didn't think it was that great, and I actually didn't even finish it before Dread. My plan was to play through them all, and I played through Metroid Zero Mission, loved it, but then I stopped at Samus Returns, and I said, screw it, I'm just going to jump into Dread, and I'm glad I did, because this game is fantastic.
Yeah, so I did finish Samus Returns, but I think I only played it through once, and you know it was for a few reasons. I wasn't nuts about the counter, so I was a little apprehensive about returning in Dread, and you know, like the map structure of Samus Returns, it's kind of a slower paced game with a little less free exploration. So yeah, I was a little apprehensive about Mercury Steam getting to do another game, but I'm right there with you. Like, as soon as I started playing, I was hooked, and they took a lot of the things that I think were criticized about Samus Returns and found ways to make them better, like the counter returns. But you no longer, only have to be standing still to use it. You can use it while sprinting. You can use it in midair. You know, you have options.
Yeah.
Little touches like that.
Yeah, I'll be honest, it took me way too long to realize that you could run and do the counter because I had just played Samus Returns, so I was stopping every time. And it feels really fluid too, just running, shooting, and then doing that melee attack. It's awesome.
Yeah, in general, Metroid Dread feels really fluid. Like, the movement's fantastic, and the animations are fantastic. Like,
yes.
The way Samus will pull herself up onto a ledge if you come up just short, or the way she'll, lean against a wall kind of, lazily. It's nice. Lots of little animations.
Yeah, I wanted to shout those out because, like, even the animations when you're not playing, like, simply, like, going up to an elevator, her walking animations and everything, I noticed they were all really good. Like, surprisingly great animations. So I did want to shout that out. And speaking of that, dude, I gotta say, Samus, she just oozes cool in this game. Everything about her and, like, all the cutscenes, she's just acting like the most badass chick in space, I swear.
Yeah, the moment where you come up to Kraid, and he, like, gets in your face and roars and everything, and Samus just doesn't even flinch.
She's so calm.
Starts charging her laser, but doesn't flinch at all. It's perfect.
Yeah, and, like, in the timeline of all of Metroid, this is the most current thing, so she has experienced all the previous games, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Dread's at the end of the timeline after Fusion, so she's a pretty hardened bounty hunter at this point. She's blown up quite a few planets.
Definitely. She's just so freaking cool. And dude, I also have to shout out, what a perfect game to launch with the OLED Switch. Have you been playing it on OLED, or have you been playing it on a normal Switch?
Yeah, I'm a plebeian. I still have a normal Switch. I'm a filthy peasant.
Oh, no.
I've mostly been playing it on the TV, actually, but I've played a little in handheld, too. And it looks great, but I'm sure it looks even better on the OLED, especially with how many, like, deep blacks there are in this game. Like,
yes,
the sort of front-facing parts of platforms, or the screen-facing parts of platforms, are just blacked out instead of having detail to sort of, sell the idea of Samus, like, descending into darkness. And then it also makes, like, the background details pop a lot more because they're standing out against these, dark shadows.
Yeah, exactly. And I gotta say, once again, I keep saying I gotta say.
You gotta say it.
There's something about the art style that's extremely simplistic, but still very pretty to look at.
it's low poly, but like they do the best, with what they have. And Nintendo's pretty good at that, stretching their art styles.
Yeah.
So I would say graphically, like my only complaint is probably that a handful of monsters or, like enemies or whatever just kind of look like generic Unreal Engine goop monsters. And I know, they're
Yeah.
not really that, but yeah, there's some enemies that didn't look particularly great to me. But for the most part, the environments were incredible. And, Samus looks good. And there were, some pretty intense looking bosses.
For sure, and that's the perfect segue. The combat, the difficulty, I personally loved it, dude. Like, this game is tough as nails. Like, I actually struggled with it a lot. I probably died like 25 times, probably like almost 50 times or more. But I still, it's the type of game where you just want to keep trying over and over because you don't feel like the bosses are punishing. You feel like they're fair. You're just trying to learn their patterns and get better and better. And I really loved it for that. What did you think about the overall combat?
Yeah, definitely. It's by far the most combat heavy of the Metroids, and especially in the boss fights. A lot of older Metroid games, the bosses, I mean, like, they do technically have patterns that you can learn and such, but it's not really the same. Like when I play Super Metroid, I'm mostly just tanking Ridley with missiles. There's not a ton of strategy to it or anything. But like you said, it's about recognizing the patterns, learning them, building up the muscle memory, and as a result, over the course of several painful deaths, you go from like, okay, how the hell am I supposed to survive for 30 seconds here, to okay, I just beat that whole phase without taking damage, onto phase 2.
Exactly. That would happen all the time. You end up beating the boss that you struggled with like your full health.
And a crucial part of that is the way respawns work, which is that, if you die, you're going to respawn immediately outside the boss door.
Yes.
So if you want to go back and fight right again, while your blood is still pumping, you can. Or if you got your butt kicked really bad and you think I should go explore for more missiles or health or whatever, you have that option too. But, it's infamously in Metroid Fusion, one of the hardest bosses was Yakuza, the spider. And the frustrating part about it is if you die, it takes like 5 minutes to get back to that boss battle because you get spawned so far away at the nearest save
yes,
station.
Dude, that's terrible.
That kind of thing can make a hard boss not fun, whereas Dread does an excellent job of just like making every boss an adrenaline rush, really. Even when you're losing, it's just like, okay, let's get through this loading screen. Let's get right back in there and go again.
Exactly. And for me, honestly, checkpoints, for me personally, they can make or break a game. I hate backtracking. I hate redoing the same thing over and over to get to a boss. I don't like it. That's why I don't like a lot of the Souls games. That's why I wasn't a big fan of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, because the checkpoints were just really bad. But I'm really glad they made it. It's not easier. It's just more convenient to not go all the way back to your last save after you die in a boss. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But you are the hardcore fan. You know all about the story and the lore and everything. Did it meet your expectations with its ending?
Yeah, I would say it did. And I will put the caveats on there that, like, it's, there's some suspension of disbelief. There's some things that are, like, silly space magic logic. But, they set out to make it what they said was, like, a fitting end to the uncanny relationship between Samus and Metroids. That's how they were pitching the story. And I think it absolutely accomplished that. And it without getting into too many specifics, Dread, more than any past game, gives us a look at the Chozo, which have always been this sort of mysterious race of powerful aliens, and we've been collecting their artifacts through all the games and stuff, but we know very little about them. And it still doesn't give too much. It keeps some of that mystique there, but more so than any past game, it's like, let's talk about the Chozo. And I'm here for that, because I've been waiting decades to know no more about the Chozo. So
yeah, I was fully into the story the whole way. There wasn't really much story, which is how I think it should be with a Metroid game, because a lot of it you want to just be alone trying to figure out like where to go, like the whole Metroidvania thing. Mm-hmm. But I feel like there was the perfect amount of like the AI that talks to you. What's his face? I forgot his name.
Adam, yeah.
Yeah, Adam, he was there the perfect amount. The cutscenes, there was a perfect amount in my opinion. And yeah, the ending is pretty crazy, and it's a big like cinematic battle that I love. So
yeah, you kind of get like big lore dumps around roughly, like the start, middle, and end of the game, and otherwise it's mostly free exploration. well, not always free exploration. Sometimes the level design kind of funnels you, like
towards your next,
another way that they convey story is just
there is a lot,
like I said earlier, through the environment, where you don't always have to have a wall of text or a cutscene to inform the player of what's going on. You can just look at those detailed backgrounds and be like, okay, what's with these monsters in test tubes? What's with this? What's with these robots being manufactured on an assembly line? And your brain starts to go just based on that, and nobody has to tell you anything. You can just go explore and see it for yourself.
Yes, I love that a lot. And one thing you mentioned before that I completely forgot to shout out, the level design. Like you mentioned, it like funnels you into the next area oftentimes, which I loved as someone who has a terrible sense of direction. I really appreciated that. It was perfect. Like, it wasn't too like handholdy. Like, you actually had to explore a room, like use your little sensor thing that like senses the breakable blocks and whatnot. The exploration, the funneling, the level design, everything was perfect in my opinion. So yeah, I did want to shout out one more time, the combat during the one-on-one boss fights feels like a freaking Melee or Smash Brothers type fight. I loved those boss fights so much. A lot of fun. And other than that, I think that's pretty much it. Was there anything else you wanted to shout out about Dread that you liked or disliked?
Not particularly. I think we covered, most of the main things. Like you said, it had a really fantastic ending with what I think might be one of the most intense boss fights I've ever played in any game. And then, a pretty cool cinematic feature or finish with some interesting story implications. So very strong finish for a very strong game.
Yeah, dude, this game made me way more excited for Metroid Prime 4, I gotta say.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and also, do you think that maybe this will make you more of a Metroid fan in general? Like, do you think you might try something other than Zero Mission from the 2D saga?
For sure. I had already planned on playing Fusion. I just never got to it, but I already have it downloaded on my Wii U, and I figured I'd play Dread first and then just go back to Fusion, because that's one I haven't played.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy Fusion quite a bit. It's got a, kind of a similar structure to Dread, so...
Awesome. Well, thanks a lot for coming on. This has been our Metroid Dread review discussion. If you enjoyed this video, hit that thumbs up. If you didn't, hit that thumbs down. And if you're feeling really generous, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It would really mean a lot. Ben, goodbye.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Take care.
See ya.